Welcome to Your Concerns in Health. I'm Dr. Barbara Kostick. This program is designed to address your questions and concerns about your health and health care. Today we explore the topic of senior scams. To help with this discussion, we have a panel of experts who specialize in fraud of the elderly. Detective Brian Ancona is with the Fremont Police Department. Eileen McAndrew is the Senior Deputy District Attorney of Alameda County Elder Abuse Unit. And Sergeant Daniel O'Connell is also the Fremont Police Department Investigations Unit. We all want to believe that this is our lucky day, that we can get a great deal, or that we can solve someone's problems. Scam artists use that thought to defraud thousands of people every year. Seniors are often the targets. The FBI reports that some elderly victims are less likely to report a fraud. Often when the elderly do report a crime, they have trouble remembering the details. We recently sampled our community to find out their concerns regarding scams on the elderly.
I remember about 5 years ago, I was down in LA, went to a motel, paid by credit card. Remember when they had the ink paper? A month later, I had a charge on my credit card for $1,000.
I have seen some scam people come and do it, say, well, I won the lotto, but I don't have anything, so I'll give you this ticket and you go give me so much money. And people will believe them.
So I wouldn't give myself an A or even a B on security. I think I'm probably, just pretty casual about it.
I found two things on my credit cards amounting to like $1,500. And so I called my credit card, and they said that it came from Paris. I said, I know, I didn't go to Paris recently.
In many cases, I think half the scams come from the relatives. There's a big hassle with that.
You got to be aware of these things. You got a lot of desperate people out there that want everything you got. And I preach this to my kids, my grandkids, to friends. And you got to be careful in this world, because if there's a way of getting into your pockets, they're going to get into it.
Okay, Detective Ancona, why won't the seniors report when they've been scammed?
Seniors are afraid to report that they are a victim of scam because they feel they might lose their independence.
Is that true?
I mean, here's somebody who's lived a full, complete life, maybe is living independently at 85 and doing well in all respects, but somebody who was a smooth talker tricked him out of $20,000. Now they think, if my kids hear about this, I'm going to assisted living.
Oh. Sergeant O'Connell, what do scam artists look like?
They look like your neighbor, your kids, other family members. There is no stereotype of a person committing scams, and that's one reason why they're so successful. They don't look like criminals.
Do they relate well? They must relate well to other people, too, I would think.
If they can talk real smooth, they're going to scam you.
Very personable, very charming.
Not with the best moral compass.
Well, if that's what a scam artist looks like, what would a perfect victim look like? What do you think?
Somebody who's trusting, loyal, somebody who's easily put at fear or concern for the situation.
Is that what makes the elderly more susceptible?
Elderly become susceptible to fraud because they want to believe what people tell them. They were brought up in a society where their word was their bond.
What makes the elderly particularly susceptible is that they're missing external controls. They don't have as many people in their lives to talk to and protect them from the bad guys, and they may be missing internal controls, meaning their brain may not be functioning and they may not be able to process information as quickly as a younger person. So a scam artist can talk and talk and talk, and maybe the senior doesn't get all the inconsistencies or the ridiculousness of the situation, and they might fall for it.
Being lonely as a senior, that's another thing. You get somebody who wants to talk to you and spend some time with you, they gobble that up. And that's what these scam artists will do. They'll become your best friend very quickly.
Well, are family members ever involved?
Family members are often involved. Just like many other things, the closest to you will often be the first one to possibly violate you.
You steal from your family first, your neighbors, friends, and then you work your way out to strangers. So family is usually the first victims.
What are some of the approach techniques that scam artists use?
There's multiple approaches, and often these people don't work single. There's 2, 3, 4, 5 people at a time, and they're working all together. One will approach you, and they'll use a ploy such as, I've won the lottery. I can't cash this ticket because I'm not a legal citizen, or many other reasons, don't have proper ID. Then another person will come in and say, oh, I overheard your conversation. I think I can help you. And it goes on from there.
Just like the TV shows.
Yes. The magic words for a lot of seniors, if they hear somebody approach and say, can you help me? Because of the culture in which they were raised, their immediate response is, yes, what can I do to help you? And that's not a good thing because the scam artists know that. They prey on people's basic goodness.
The victims often feel this is just a chance meeting and it's a coincidence, but with the scam artists, it's well planned out. And they'll wait in a parking lot or a store or drive down a street and pick their targets ahead of time.
You know, they'd use such things as even the quotes out of the Bible to make these individuals believe that they're such good people that they can quote scriptures.
So they're really able to relate to the people that they're scamming, I mean, including even being a relative of them. So they know about that person. They've studied them. They've decided what they're going to do. We're really at a disadvantage with little people.
Yeah, they'll talk to the victim and ask questions and gain information from them, and then they'll reiterate that to the victim, and the victim will think, oh, they actually know about me ahead of time, when no, the victim has already given them that information through the questioning.
Or there are some scam artists that go so low as to read obituaries, and there's a lot of personal identifying information in obituaries. If an 85-year-old man dies and in the obituary it lists his wife's name and their children's name, now the scam artist is armed with a lot of information and can find that person and target them.
Yeah, so as you said, there's lots of different ways to come out. Let's see about a telephone conversation with a scam artist.
Hello?
Is this Carl Schaefer?
Yes, it is. May I ask who's calling?
You don't know me, sir. My name's Billy Smith. I'm a classmate of your grandson, Charlie.
Oh, is Charlie all right?
Well, that's why I'm calling, sir. We kind of ran into a little trouble down here in Mexico during spring break.
Trouble? What kind of trouble?
It's an entirely bogus charge, sir, honest, but... Well, Charlie's been arrested. They say he was trying to smuggle marijuana out of the country.
Oh my God, that doesn't sound like Charlie at all.
I know, sir, that's just the point. I admit, we did kind of have a couple of joints on us, but it was purely for recreational purposes. But the police just won't listen.
Do you need me to call the authorities? Does Charlie need a lawyer?
Well, it hasn't come to that yet, sir. They say if we pay a fine, they'll release him. The thing is, they're threatening to take Charlie to prison if we don't come up with $500 for the fine.
Do you have the money?
No, sir, we don't. They say we need to get someone to wire them the money. That's the only way they'll let Charlie go.
Are you sure that's the only option?
That's what they said, sir. And they seem very serious about sending Charlie to prison if we don't come up with the money right away. I'm really worried. I mean, I'm sure you've heard how horrible it is for an American stuck in a Mexican prison. Not like in the States.
Well,
Please, sir. Charlie really needs you to help him get out of this mess. They claim if they don't get the money by tomorrow, they're gonna send him to prison for sure.
That scam brought up a lot of the points that you mentioned about who the scam artists are. A relative?
They usually identify themselves as either a family, relative, or a friend that is in need of some help.
And preying on this grandpa's basic goodness. He just wants good things to happen for his grandson, so that makes him vulnerable.
Another key issue is they'll always say, we don't want to tell anybody what's happened. We want to keep this just between us because we don't want to embarrass anyone or something to that effect. That is a clue right there. This is a fraud. What you want to do immediately is contact the other family members to verify that this is in fact happening.
Mm-hmm. What other scams go on over the telephone?
They call and they've said they've won the lottery or some contest, and they ask that they wire money to pay for the taxes for the weddings. And it's usually out of the country lotto scams, and if you haven't entered a lottery, you haven't won.
There could be fraudulent charities that are soliciting over the phone, or anybody who can pick up a phone can come up with a bad idea that can scam people. They come up with a line, they put together a script, and that's how they scam people.
You can go to the California, I believe it's California State website, and find charities that are legitimate charities in order which ones you can contribute to and which ones may be fraudulent. Another issue that I've told many people is to try and have caller ID. That way you can see who's calling you and whether or not you even want to answer the phone.
Because you have a choice. You don't have to answer the phone.
Or the door.
Or the door, okay.
And many of our seniors are so polite that they do answer, and once they're on the phone, they are reluctant to just hang up, whereas everyone at this table would have no problem hanging up on a solicitation call.
And if they really want to give to that charity or company, they can ask for a return phone number or a website, and then they can research that and then contact that company later to see if they're legitimate.
One of the things I do when I get solicited like that is I ask them to just send me a letter, that I don't do anything over the phone. And I don't think I've received a letter in at least 2 years of these solicitation calls.
And you probably won't. There's also the do not call registry, where you could list your phone not to receive calls from these solicitors.
But that won't stop a scam artist.
That won't stop a scam artist, but it'll stop you from receiving a lot of annoying phone calls.
And if you don't, as Brian was talking about, you can get caller ID. You can also just screen all your calls. You don't have to answer the phone. Things can go to voicemail, and you can pick up those messages and study the information in that message if you want, or you can just delete it. You don't have to answer the phone.
So these are almost like ways to get rid of telemarketers too.
Yes.
A lot of telemarketing calls are scams too.
Oh.
Like extended warranties. I had a company call me asking if I wanted to extend the warranty on a washer and dryer, and it sounded pretty legitimate and reasonable, and until he asked for my Social Security number. And I knew right then and there this isn't legit, because they're not going to ask for that information.
So it's when they ask for personal information that doesn't quite go with what they're trying to sell you.
Yeah, and they had me through 3/4 of this phone call until they asked for the Social Security number, and then I just said, no, I'm not interested.
And hung up?
Right.
Now, again, asking for personal information, that's another topic. Any business, any company that you're doing business with already has your personal information, such as your social and maybe your credit card account or checking account. That's something you do not give out over the phone. They already have it.
Well, let's take a look at a scam that could happen at the doorway of someone's home.
Good afternoon, ma'am. We apologize for interrupting your day. We've been asked by the local power company to check the wiring in your area. 420 Evergreen Lane. That is your address, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And you are?
Mrs. Edward Olson.
Yes, we have you right here on our at-risk list.
Oh, I didn't realize that. We can't afford anything like this right now.
Oh, it won't cost you anything. There's no cost for the inspection. See, we've had a lot of faulty wiring in your area. What year was your house built?
In 1982, I think. But
yes, the houses built in the early 80s are the most at risk. See, there's been a lot of changes in regulations since then, and there's a good chance the wiring in your house is unsafe.
oh my, I didn't realize.
I don't mean to alarm you, Miss Wilson. We've even had several reports of spontaneous fires breaking out because this faulty wiring could spread through the walls really quickly.
Oh, but we've never had trouble with our electricity. Not once in all the years we've lived here.
Well, you've been really lucky so far, ma'am. I'm afraid that's a story we hear all the time before. People lose homes and irreplaceable family keepsakes due to these electrical fires. I'm sure you don't want to suffer the same fate.
Oh, no, not really.
Don't worry, Miss Olson. We'll be on your way in no time. Jerry, why don't you go check the electrical upstairs? Now, if you show me where your fuse box is, we can get started.
Well, why does a scam like that work?
They show up face to face, they look like they're legitimate utility workers, and then they create some type of scenario that there's a sense of an emergency. Your gas is leaking, your power is off, or there's a short. So they create a atmosphere of urgency.
What it really is we need to be aware these are strangers. And when we learned in kindergarten about stranger danger, we have to remember that through our whole lives. What they're doing is coming into your home, your sanctuary, and you don't know who they are. And unless and until you do know who they are, you can't let them in if you want to be safe.
You know, someone coming to your door in a uniform means absolutely nothing. You can go to any costume shop or even the secondhand store and wind up picking up jackets, vests, and such to make you look like a legitimate, whatever, PG&E, water guy, and such. Now they're going to pull that scam. I'm here to look at your pipes, water pipes for whatever reason, and they'll take you into the backyard.
Why are they coming to your door to do this? What's their intention?
They're going to commit a burglary. They're going to go into your house and steal your jewelry, guns, and wallets and valuables, small valuables, and they're going to walk out, and you won't even know that it's missing until hours later.
Okay, now you think your stuff's safe. You think you're hiding it very well, but these are people who are professionals and they know exactly where to go. They're going to go into your closet. They're going to start patting down your clothes. They're going to feel for where you're hiding your valuables because they know what seniors do.
So these are people that rob for a living.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if they were professional or legitimate utility workers, what's the one thing we have to do to get it and come out and work on our house? We got to take a half day off. They'll say, yeah, I'll be here between 12 and 4, and then we wait around until 3:30 and they show up. They're not going to bang on your door and say, hey, we're here for a inspection.
Yeah, we're here to help. Sure you are.
To help themselves.
So the things that we learn from this scenario are that we don't open our door to strangers.
That's the first lesson we learn there. And if they're presenting some kind of urgency, you take a break. There's no rush. You say, you know what, let me get your card, and whatever agency they claim to be with, we're going to check the real number in the phone book and find out if they really are there for a real legitimate reason. The answer is going to be they're not.
And if they create this scenario that it's extremely dangerous, like there's a gas leak, the fire department's going to get there before they get there because they need to evacuate the area. So the more severe they make it, the more likelihood there's going to be emergency personnel on scene.
So if you think there's an emergency, what do? You call 911. You don't let strangers in your house.
See, there's another issue about letting strangers in your house. Say what they'll do is they'll separate. One will stay with the homeowner, the other one will start ransacking the place. If the homeowner is to, for whatever reason, come back and check on something else and see this person ransacking their property, likelihood that violence will occur.
Oh gosh. Well, if these were PG&E type people or repairmen, what about handymen? Is that another kind of scam, or contractors?
Most legitimate contractors aren't going to go door to door soliciting, and they're going to either advertise in the yellow pages or have commercials or word of mouth. Once you let one of these individuals into your house, you lost. You've become a victim. You don't have to answer your door, but what I strongly recommend is at least acknowledge these people, because there's times that they'll knock on the door to see if somebody's home, and if nobody is, they may go around the back and then force their way in, thinking that nobody's home.
If you really need to have work done, there are things that you can do. You can find out from your neighbors or friends who they've used for particular kinds of work, because a lot of contractors, legitimate contractors, get most of their work from word of mouth. And there's a Contractor State License Board website. If you're looking for a contractor in your area, you can research it through there, and there's tons of consumer information about what to do before you hire somebody to do some major work on your house. If it's a job for over $500 with labor and materials, you have to use a licensed contractor. They have to be licensed by the state in order to do that kind of a job.
I didn't know that.
The state actually has a fraud team to investigate people who have conducted construction fraud. Now, an average, what you want to do is you want to get 10% down of whatever the bid is, 50% when they're halfway done, and then 50% when they're completed the act. When anyone's asking you for 50% or more up front, there's another clue. It's likely to be fraud.
It's a crime in any case.
Wow. Any other scams that happen in the house?
Yeah, they'll come in and try to do some home repair, whether it's work on your roof or some minor remodeling.
Caulk the tub.
Right, and what they'll do is they'll offer you a deal that we're working on your neighbor's house, or we've been in the area and we have extra material, And then they'll say, hey, for this one day, we'll give you 50% off. Well, legitimate businesses don't do that, and they're there to commit a crime.
They will come in wearing vests, they'll come in wearing jackets, and give the story just like Sergeant O'Connell's saying, just so they can get your money. So they look legitimate, they're not.
So a warning to anybody is, if you weren't looking for a roofer, then don't let a roofer in your house. If you, just because a roofer says that you, or somebody who claims to be a roofer, says you need a new roof, don't respond to unsolicited requests, and that's what these are. If someone's knocking on your door or calling you on the phone saying you need something, you don't. If you decide on your own that you need to get some work done, you do the research, you do your homework, and that's the way to stay safe.
Okay, so we've gone through where we don't answer the door, we make an appointment to have someone come out. What happens if I'm this person and I did let those people in? Now what do I do?
You think you've been a victim?
Yeah, they're right here. What do I do now? And now I'm starting to panic because I remember this this show, and you guys told me not to let them in, and I let them in anyway. Now I'm thinking maybe that it is a scam. What do I do now? What should I do?
You ask them to leave, then you tell them to leave. If they don't, you go dial 911, pick up the phone. These people don't want to be caught. They don't want to be confronted by the police. If they're legitimate, they're going to stick around and wait for the police to respond and then explain what's going on, and we'll determine, yeah, it's okay.
If you're frightened, and they may be frightened, excuse yourself for a moment, step into another room, and make the call like Sergeant O'Connell's saying. Sometimes you may not want to confront them and say, hey, get out of my house. I don't know if I'd want to if I was 80 years old and I had 3 large men in my home. I'd be kind of afraid to tell them, get out.
You bring up a good point, though, about all of a sudden you realize that something's not right. Our survival instinct is our best weapon, and when you think that something's not right, you're right. And you need to respond to that and trust that instinct. So that is a 911 call, because things are not safe, and deep in your subconscious you have become aware of that, and now you have to do something about it.
Well, let's look at another scenario. How about this one in a parking lot?
You hit my friend with your car. He don't look so good.
But I checked behind me. I didn't see anyone. I'm so sorry. Are you all right?
We're not going to know until we get him to the hospital. You know, we should call the police. This is a clear case of reckless driving.
The police? Okay, I suppose we have to.
I don't think I have any broken bones. Lady, you came out of nowhere.
I'm so sorry. I just didn't see you.
You know, we might not have to call the police. I might not have any internal injuries.
Hey, we're not going to know that until we get you to the emergency room.
You can't take me to the ER. I don't have health insurance.
Well, I guess we'll just have to call the cops and let them sort it out.
We might not have to call the police. If you could just cover my costs for the emergency room, we could just forget this ever happened.
Well, certainly I'd be glad to help you in any way, but I don't have much money on me.
There's an ATM right over there.
If you could cover maybe $300, maybe that would be enough to cover my costs for the emergency room.
Well, I guess I could give you that much money.
All right, we'll follow you over there. But please hurry. I have to get to my friend to the hospital right away. Oh, it's all right, buddy. It's okay. You're gonna be all right.
Well, what do you think about that one?
I've actually had a case like that in San Leandro, and the young man who was a methamphetamine addict was targeting late model large cars and following old ladies out of the different stores in this shopping center, and he would pretend to get hit by the car when they backed up. They didn't want anybody to get involved because they were afraid that they might lose their license or insurance, and he promised that they wouldn't call the police or anybody if he just got $100 or $200 or $300 from this particular woman. He got greedy and at one point said, "Oh, you've hurt my knee, I need $1,500 on one case." So he was doing it over and over again. Easy, easy scam. And in this particular scenario that you've shown, they're inviting her to go to the ATM, which is particularly dangerous, right, Brian?
incredibly dangerous. That's just a robbery waiting to happen. Once you start pulling out that money, they're going to insist on more. They may even take your own ATM card at that point, as well as your other credit cards. But backing up, anytime that you're in a parking lot anywhere, whether you're a male or a female, you need to be aware of what's around you. Not only are people pretending they've been hit by a car, but they're coming up behind you and they're grabbing your purse, taking your wallet, your briefcase. Constantly be aware of everything that's around you. And I do suggest having your keys in your hand, ready to open that door quickly.
This has actually been a pretty popular scam lately. We've had numerous calls about vehicles backing up in parking lots, and they'll pick something that's busy, shopping centers or grocery stores, and then somebody will walk into the car, slap the side of the car, and then they act like they're hurt. And then they'll say, you know, don't call the police or call the police. That's exactly what you want. You want the police to be called. You haven't done anything wrong. You've been involved in some type of traffic accident. That's why we have insurance in the first place. And the police are going to show up and determine, you know what, this is either legitimate or it's not. And if you do call the police or threaten it, these people are going to get up and leave. They don't want to be confronted by the cops.
This scenario that we looked at had two guys in it. Is it usually two guys?
You know, more and more it's women that are playing the scam role or being hit by a car, and they may even be elderly themselves with an elderly gentleman. Again, remember, these scam artists come in all shapes, colors, and sizes, and they're going to play on your fears or your sympathies, and the more pathetic they can look themselves, the more likelihood they're going to get money out of these people.
And one of the fears that a lot of our seniors have if they're driving is that if somebody finds out they had a collision, they don't get to drive anymore. That takes away their independence. They end up in a nursing home, and that's what they're really afraid of. They're afraid of losing their independence. That's why it's such an effective scam, and that's why that elderly woman in the skit was saying, don't call the police. She was afraid of that.
So what about the cars that elderly people drive? You said you targeted, what, big cars? Or?
Generally, the older you get, they seem to be the bigger the cars. Either that or they're older vehicles, big American-made cars, but they're in very good shape.
Low mileage because you only
Right.
drive to the grocery store and the doctor's office.
And clean.
Exactly.
And clean. My car's always dirty, but my folks' car, always clean.
I'm looking to buy that car, the one they drive just to the grocery store and back.
But that's right. They do have to have good visibility in their cars too, so they should look at that too.
Yeah, and I can't stress that's why we have insurance. If anybody needs to be legitimately paid out some money, it's going to go through a process with the insurance company with an investigation, and if they're due that money, they'll get it. It's not from your ATM account or trying to avoid a report or anything like that.
If it comes out, don't call the police. It's a very good likelihood this is going to be fraud. Just remember that.
Anytime it's a secret, anytime you're told not to call or not to let somebody know, that's a red flag.
Any other scams that you see like this?
I see a lot more like just robberies, as the other gentleman were talking about. Robberies where women with their purses are not aware of their surroundings. And it could be a young woman or an old woman, but old women are targeted in particular. They're carrying it on their purse, they're carrying their purse on their shoulder, and they're walking and not paying attention to what's around them, and somebody can come up and knock them down. And when we're talking about somebody who's in their 80s, that kind of an injury can be life-threatening. It could be a broken hip, it could be a cracked skull, and they're really, really serious. You have to be aware of your surroundings. If you're concerned about your safety, you need to get back to a position of safety. So for example, if you're walking out of the store and you become aware that there's some people around that you're uncomfortable with, go back in the store. Because if you can trust your instincts and you know something's wrong, you can protect yourself.
It's not always a man. Don't always be out there looking for a man to commit this crime. Women commit these crimes many times.
I was taught a long time ago that scams work because of the 3 Gs. Either they prey on your goodness, they prey on your gullibility, or they prey on their greed. Any one or all of those things can result in a big scam and a big loss. That's how they work.
When we come back, we'll look at scams on the internet and identity theft.
Got a letter from Publishers Clearinghouse, and it said that I had won second prize amounting to $1 million. And it gave the numbers, and it looked kind of authentic in the sense that I had my 2 good friends who are a lot better at this than I am, look at it, and they thought, well, it looks kind of legit. So then I called the number that it had on there. And the guy said, "Oh yeah, this is legit." He goes, "I'll activate your initial check, which is, you know, like $2,000. Just a minute." And then he gets off the line, and I'm holding, and it doesn't come back, and you know, gets disconnected. So I try a few more times, and it just doesn't connect. So then I decided to. My friend goes in the computer and everything, and he gets me the telephone number of Publishers Clearinghouse. So I call them, and they said they don't give out any second prizes. and they would never notify you like that. So it's tear it up, you know.
I accumulate a lot of paper, and so every once in a while we get these services to come out and they shred on site. And it's fairly inexpensive for, an awful lot of paper. So I generally keep 7 years of records and then have the others shredded.
I had a friend next door who was an airline pilot. And his buddy, who was a high-tech person, came over and they were talking, and he said, "Well, what do you need to know about yourself?" And he said, "You can't find out anything." He said, "I can tell you your life history in less than 5 minutes." And he went on and he told him exactly what his bank accounts were, told him what his stock accounts were, and everything else.
And that's why I don't go online. I think that's the easiest way people get your stuff.
I don't know how they do it, and I don't really worry about it. And I probably do things that I shouldn't be doing, and I just don't think about it. I'm a trusting soul.
Identity theft occurs when someone uses your personal identifying information, like your name, social security number, or a credit card number without your permission. The Federal Trade Commission estimates that as many as 9 million Americans have their identity stolen each year. What are the different ways scam artists can steal an identity?
I want to add something to this. Using your medical number is also a form of identity theft. Using your business name is another form of identity theft. The way many of these people who are obtaining this information, they can go through your garbage, pick up something that way. Applications, many of us have put in an application to work somewhere or even to buy something, credit applications and such. Your information is only as safe as whoever's handling it.
Your information is at your doctor's office, at your dentist's office. There's tons of information about you in lots of different places. If you want to do a Zaba search, you can find out a lot of information that's available to everybody about you, or a Google search. There is way more information readily available to anyone who wants to get it because of the internet.
But I'm a trusting soul, so I don't worry about that. Is that wrong?
No, you should be trusting, but use some cautious and practice some reasonable measures to keep your identity safe. And as some of the people mentioned, shred your documents. Don't put bank statements in the garbage. You need to shred them beforehand. Another thing to do is I don't use my mailbox to send mail out. When I pay my bills, things like that, I take it directly to the post office. The mail that I receive at my house, I pick it up that same day. We also recommend that you have a locking mailbox so it's more difficult to get in. Don't let your mail stay overnight. If you're going to be out of town, let your neighbors know and have them pick up your mail in your newspapers on a daily basis. The fact is we usually don't know where people's identity is compromised. And unfortunately, more often than not, it actually occurs at actual businesses that you've dealt with, banks, medical facilities, credit companies. They have people inside these organizations that sell that information.
So we don't have to dive into dumpsters to get this information?
No, you don't have to dive into dumpsters. Matter of fact, a quick story on mail. I've actually seen video of a person tying a string to a CD case like you'd buy to a movie, a music. There's less lethal rat traps where they have glue and they can spread it out so the mouse or the rat will get caught on the glue. Put this stuff on the CD case, drop it into the mailbox, let it lay flat on the bottom of the mailbox, pull it back up, and it has 3, 4, 5 different pieces of mail attached to it. These guys will go through, they'll take out what they want, they're looking for the bills.
Another form of phishing.
True phishing.
And if you do that at an apartment complex or a business, you drop down that in there, how many debit cards or credit cards go through the mail that people receive, and they get these. And you'll call in a month later and say, hey, I didn't get my new credit card or the one that expired, the replacement. But it's being used. Why? Because somebody got it, they activated it, and you don't even know about it until you get a statement 30 days later.
They'll take the outgoing mail that has your checks in it, they'll wash the checks and forge them and for different amounts. So you thought you wrote a check to PG&E for $50, but all of a sudden it's written to cash for $5,000 or $500, and now you're overdrawn at the bank because you didn't send your check out through a secure facility like dropping it at the post office. They'll find all kinds of things.
You know, another issue is on checks. Many of us have gone to the grocery store, Safeway, or somewhere else, where they slide that check in one side and it slides out right the other. All that machine is reading is your account number and your routing number. It doesn't care whose name's on it. So I can get your account information, create fictitious checks, and for the next 24, 48, 72 hours, pass checks through many stores.
Brian and I did an investigation of somebody obtained a elderly lady's identifying information, and the suspect happened to be a younger, fairly attractive woman in her early 30s, and she bought 3 cars within a matter of a month using this lady's identification. So she owned 2 Mercedes-Benz and a Honda, and this poor lady didn't know about it until she started getting collection notices saying, hey, why aren't you paying for your Mercedes-Benz? And she's all, what do you mean? And sure enough, this lady had obtained the woman's bank account, social security number, date of birth, name, address, and decided to go on a shopping spree.
Wow, how did she obtain it now to start with, you said?
A lot of times they don't know. In this particular case, we did know it was through a mortgage fraud. This person was representing themselves as a loan broker and obtained the information from the woman's husband because he was going to refinance the house. But the deal never went through, and her whole thing was, no, I'm just using this scam to collect information.
I've had a case where a receptionist at a dental center was, because she had access to all the personal identifying information of the patient, she was opening up false credit cards. And she signed up for tickets for her family to go to Guam and some hair removal services, all with somebody else's credit. And often it was seniors. She was targeting seniors. And again, we're talking about women. A lot of women are doing this. It's not just men. So we're seeing, particularly with elder abuse, a lot more women involved.
Most people don't even find out about this for a while. They'll receive a letter in the mail for demand for payment, or they'll find out they're overdrawn. I've told many people the best way to fight back is to monitor your stuff online if you have that ability, your credit card statements, your checking account statements. If you catch that early, you can stop it.
Yeah, my husband monitors ours. Once a week he goes into the accounts and looks at our checkbook and looks at credit cards. I always think he just wants to know what I charged that week, though.
Yes, but he's also protecting your credit. He may be checking you, but he's checking his credit, too.
You know, there are free credit checks for everyone. There's an annual credit check. And I suggest people do it quarterly from one entity at a time, Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian. That way they could pretty much cover themselves for the year to see if credit cards or checking accounts have been opened up using their personal information.
You can also sign up for services that will monitor your bank accounts, your credit activity, and if anything suspicious appears, they will immediately contact you to find out, hey, is this you? Are you actually here buying this product? And you'll be able to find out right then and there if you're a victim.
We found that out with one of our major credit cards. When we travel, we have to notify them that we're traveling and where we're going, and yes, please okay the charge.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, for seniors, if you don't need to get any more credit, if you already have, your 2 or 3 credit cards that you use all the time, and you don't want to apply for any more credit, you don't have to have your information available for people to take credit out in your name. You can do what's called a credit freeze, and Brian can tell you a little bit about that.
You can go to any of the credit bureaus, and for a charge of it's $10 per person, have your credit completely frozen where no one except existing creditors can look at your credit. Now, in the event that you want it to be open, say you wanted to buy that new car, that new Porsche, that's what I'd like to have. you can open it up for that one entity to take a look at your credit. No one else. And it'll open it up for a 10-day period.
So essentially, for $30, you can close your credit information to potential creditors. So if someone does steal your personal identifying information and they try to get credit in your name, it's blocked.
Are there certain things you should carry in your purse or wallet about your credit, or certain things you shouldn't carry around with you?
What's more, what you shouldn't. You shouldn't carry your Social Security card or anything with your Social Security number on it. You should only carry the credit cards that you use, not every single one that you have. In fact, you shouldn't have a whole bunch of credit cards. Getting back to the
now you
the
are sounding
freeze.
like my husband.
Yeah. Getting back to the credit freeze, there's also a fraud alert that you can put on. The freeze is better than the fraud alert because the fraud alert just puts out a notice to creditors that if anybody tries to open up an account in my name for a 90-day period, that call this number or contact me to make sure that I'm actually the person opening up the account. That expires after 90 days. With the freeze, you can't even open up an account unless you lift that prior to applying for it. So the better way to go is the freeze rather than the fraud alert.
The original fraud alert is only 90 days, but you can contact the credit bureau again with a police report and have it extended out to 5, I'm pretty confident it's 5, maybe 7, but I think it's 5 years. Now those warnings work. I've actually been called by victims that have told me, somebody's trying to get a loan in my name. This happened right here in Fremont. I was actually the loan officer for that day. Well, that suspect came in, the identity thief, to get their loan, gave him the check, had him sign it, talked to him for a little while, then said, "Hi, I'm Detective Ancona, you're under arrest." So it works.
And you're on candid camera. The other thing we were worried about was computer fraud. What about when you buy things online? Is there something you should do or not do about that?
Well, first of all, you need to protect your computer with various, I don't even know the names of these
But
you have spyware, virusware, and put a firewall on there. That's reasonable. I mean, there's all kinds out there. Some are better than others, but a lot of it depends on your computer system.
Well, they all say, you know, this is a protected site or something, but there are ways you can tell if that site's a protected site that you're logging on to.
It kind of goes back to the stranger danger. If you're looking for something and you're soliciting them, you're more likely to pick a legitimate site. If somebody's contacting you and saying, "We have such a great deal for you," you are more likely to get scammed in the scenario where somebody's soliciting you than when you're soliciting a company.
So maybe getting an unsolicited email directing you to a website is not the way to go.
It's the impulsive buying. It's when you're looking on a website or surfing the web and a advertisement pops up and you click on it and you decide, hey, that looks pretty interesting, that seems like a good deal, and then you give your credit card number out and you actually purchase the item. You know, you're exposing yourself to either identity theft or getting scammed. You want to go to a trusted site, and you said there is a way to tell if something is secure. You have the HTTP at the beginning of the email address or the website. If there's an S after the P, that shows that it is generally it's going to be secure.
And a lock at the bottom of the screen often indicates
Right.
that it's a secure website as well.
That isn't completely going to make it safe. They can copy the whole entire page and send it off in what we call spoofing or phishing, and make you believe that you're looking at a legitimate page and you're not. They're requesting information from you. Many banks, identifying themselves as banks, Citibank, Bank of America, sent out hundreds of millions of emails requesting information saying that they've lost your account information or something to that effect.
I just got an email like that from quote, Bank of America.
Oh, that's
So
phishing.
there you go. They're just fishing for information.
That is
and
a scam.
And many people give that information out, not realizing what they're doing.
And, you know, how can we get a hold of this and prosecute them or do something about it? You know, you get it, you recognize it as a scam, but then you just delete it.
You know,
you don't want it
the
on
way
your
to go
computer.
is to make yourself as safe as possible, because a lot of these sites are either out of the state or out of the country where it ultimately is, and we don't have the means or resources to investigate it or even have jurisdiction on prosecution. So if you go directly to the sites that you want to visit, that you know about, the legitimate businesses, don't click on the advertisements and then the link within those sites, because you're probably not going to the official business, you're going to some offshoot. and they're trying to either obtain your credit card numbers or identifying information.
But if you want to be a good citizen and you know somebody is fishing for information and you've gotten this fake B of A solicitation, contact the real B of A, because they have fraud investigators and they don't want their good name to be destroyed by these people who are going to hurt you and their customers.
That's an excellent point, because a lot of times you'll contact that bank and they'll already know about it. They'll go, oh yeah, we've been getting calls on this for the last 2 weeks. So
and they can do little about it though, really, except protect us from...
They can warn their customers saying, this is not legitimate, do not, and a lot of times they do that. They'll send out a blanket email to all their customers saying, if you've been solicited by Bank of America requesting your contact information or your account number information, that is not legitimate. Do not give that information out. We have your information. We won't be asking for it.
You've established a business relationship already with this financial institution. They're not going to ask you for additional information. They have it.
And if you haven't established a relationship, then you know that it's a fraud, right?
Correct.
So
and if you have access to these businesses, the actual brick and mortar locations of buildings, you know, get in your car, drive down there, and meet them face to face and say, hey, what's going on here? And they'll be able to tell you, no, this is a legitimate deal, or no, this is a scam.
If you do respond to one of these and then realize it's a problem, you still need to notify your bank to put a fraud alert on all your accounts, and because somebody's going to drain your account as fast as they get that information.
Also, if they get your identifying information, they may not only try to create new accounts, but it's like you said, they're going to take out your current bank accounts or your current credit cards. So if you don't notify them, they don't know you've been a victim. So there may not be suspicious activity that you can identify till later.
Let's look at another scenario.
Excuse me, sir. I apologize for approaching you like this, but, well, you look like an honest man.
Thank you. I try to be fair with everybody. What can I do for you?
Well, sir, I've just won $1,000 in the lottery. I have the winning ticket right here.
You're a very lucky man, then. I never seem to win anything with those things.
The thing is, sir, I'm not a U.S. citizen, and you have to be one to be able to collect your winnings.
Really? I didn't realize that.
So I was wondering if maybe you could claim the winnings instead.
I don't know.
I could make it very worth your while, sir. In fact, if you would be willing to give me just half of the amount in cash, I'll just hand over the winning ticket to you, and you'll earn an extra $500 for yourself when you claim the prize.
But then I'd be getting the better part of the deal.
I know, sir, but I'm willing to do it because, well, $500 is better than not being able to cash in the winning ticket at all. And I have to be going back to my home country because my grandfather is very sick. Besides, you should get something for your trouble.
I don't know, but let me take a look at this ticket here.
What should this man have done?
He should have just said, hey, you don't need to be a citizen to cash a lottery ticket. They don't check if you're a U.S. citizen or not. They just make sure the ticket is legitimate, and they give you the money. So he should have just walked away.
Just walk away. Any other scams like that that you see?
Scams, they're not just lottery scams. If you want to go to the lotto, let's talk about people who receive in the mail. You've just won the Spanish lottery, the Italian lottery, the Canadian lottery. You can't win a lottery unless you play. Many people don't even play. And when you win, you receive. You're not asked to give. Many of these lottery letters will provide you with a check in your name, asking you to cash this check and return the money via Western Union or MoneyGram for multiple reasons. It could be insurance reasons, tax reason, customs fee, many different reasons.
All lies. It's all fraud.
Well, how about prosecuting?
If we can find who's doing it, and frequently they're overseas and we don't know who's doing it, then we'll prosecute. But the reality is we don't know where they're coming from. They're coming from lots of different places. So if local law enforcement is notified, they'll try and notify the FBI. But these people are not here. They're far away, and there is no money. And what the checks that Brian's talking about, The reason they're asking people to deposit those checks is because they're forged or fraudulent checks. You get a check for $4,000 and the letter will say, deposit this check and withdraw $3,000 and wire it someplace else. So you do that, and what happens is $3,000 is gone from your account, and that $4,000 check is no good. You're out $3,000.
The bank's going to come in and take that money right out of your account.
You lose.
And that's when you find out that you're a victim.
And by then your money has been moved to several overseas accounts and no one's ever going to get it back. And these people are so predatory, they'll come back and say, you know, you did pay that $3,000, but that doesn't cover all the fees. There's another $2,000 that you need to wire to us in order for us to send you the final check. And we have people, particularly seniors, who out of desperation or greed will follow through and do that and send more money even though they, on one hand, know they're sending good money after bad. They think that really they're going to win this time.
Brian had a great case of a elderly gentleman that just kept being a victim, and a victim even after he explained it to him.
Once you're in so deep, they're hoping to get some money back. That's what it really comes down to.
It's like gamblers.
Oh, I'm going to win big next time.
Yeah, it's like gambling addiction. Like, all I have to do is do this, and then I get it, then I get it, then I get it. And they don't. They just keep losing money.
What I find so amazing is once you've bitten on this deal, that all the scammers out there will start sending you these letters. And these people will have shopping bags full of winnings that they've won different various lotteries.
They're on sucker lists.
Oh my gosh, so the scammers have their own team.
They sell the lists of the suckers.
Yeah, we had a guy who was scammed out of $60,000 plus, and even after we told him, hey, this is a scam, his family told him it was a scam, the bank did, we did, being the police department, he still sent another $5,000, $6,000 because he just wanted to make sure that this wasn't legit.
Oh gosh.
So he was just stubborn and in denial, and he lost almost his whole life savings.
I've gotten a letter from the daughter of a man who had refinanced his house to keep playing this even though he'd been ripped off. And he was on a sucker list, so he was a victim of multiple frauds, probably to multiple countries, because everybody knew that he would send money.
Just like Sergeant O'Connell explained, there are people, they don't believe us. They think that they are going to miss out on an opportunity to win a lot of money.
Because the scam artists tell them, the police are going to tell you this is a scam, don't believe them.
The best I could tell them is put that money into a separate checking account if you don't believe me. Let it wait there until it comes back. Then you'll know this is a counterfeit check.
In other words, wait. I think what you're all telling it is slow down. You don't have to do anything as an emergency. And the 3 Gs, tell me again what they were.
For scams, people prey on your goodness, your gullibility that you believe things, or your greed.
Thanks to the panel. There's a lot of scam artists out there, and there are lots of people too willing to trust them. Here are some ideas to help you steer clear of fraud. Be wary of strangers who approach you with an offer. Stranger danger. Keep account numbers, codes, and passwords private. Shred bills, junk mail, and receipts before discarding them. Don't be afraid to report your experiences with strangers to the authorities. If an offer sounds too good to be true, it probably is. When it comes to now or never opportunity, choose the never. Thanks for watching Your Concerns in Health. I'm Dr. Barbara Kostick.